So this is our take on the traditional Ned rig. This is the Great Lakes Finesse Ned Bug. You know, the Ned has been around for a really long time. Many years ago, guys got onto this really small worm profile. They started dragging it around the bottom really slowly. Very simple, very subtle, but really, really effective. And that whole technique has really taken off, you know, really over the last decade and put a lot of fish in the boat for a lot of anglers. You know, the problem now is pretty much everyone's using that old style Ned, that traditional worm. And we thought, man, we need to really, you know, upgrade this Ned technique, this Ned bait, and that's how we came up with the Ned Bug. So collectively, amongst our entire team, we have over 50 years of tournament experience, and over those years, manipulating baits, seeing how those fish react to certain profiles, we knew that this was the profile that we wanted to go with. We knew it needed to be short, it needed to have a bulbous head. We wanted a few little appendages just to give it some action, and really just a whole different look than these fish have ever seen before. So we've been working on this bait for over 2 years. You know, it didn't take us too long to nail the profile and find a profile that we get a pile of bites. But about a year ago, we just found that we were losing way too many fish. We were losing at least half. So we came up with this little slit in the top of the head. And what that does is it frees the bait up from the hook shank, and it just gives you the entire hook to be able to bury into that smallmouth's mouth. You know, we're dealing with small 1/0 hooks here, size 1 in some cases. So being able to have that plastic move away from the bait and be able to bury that hook and use the entire hook shank for that hook set, we found that we were able to go from losing half those fish to landing nearly every fish we hooked. And that was a huge breakthrough for us about a year ago. When we were developing this bait, we felt it was really important for this bait to have ribs. A couple reasons. One is we're moving this bait along the bottom really slow, and these fish are getting a really good look at it. We felt having a profile that wasn't so smooth and more broken up, just was a little bit more realistic. And not only that, we want to be able to use scent sometimes. Again, we're moving this bait, sometimes we're even dead sticking it. And that's the time that you really want to consider adding scent to your bait. When you're moving it really slow and they're staring at it, that's when scent can make a big difference. And this bait allows you to smear that scent on it, and it's not going to come off very easily. So the other advantage of having these appendages is that sometimes we'll see these fish off the bottom, and being able to have the movement in those appendages gives the opportunity to swim the bait over top of those fish. And we found that there's times where swimming this bait can outperform the bait being dragged on the bottom. You know, in addition to this being a really cool profile that they just love to eat, you know, this has the traditional matte finish, the buoyancy, but also the durability. The durability is so important when you're adding little appendages like these to a bait. If we were using really soft material, there's no way we could get away with this profile, these little tiny arms. The nice thing about this bait is you can fish it, you can catch a pile of fish, and these little arms and little tentacles aren't gonna get pulled off by fish or panfish. So we absolutely nailed the buoyancy in this bait, not only with the profile and having that bulbous head, but this bait will actually sit on a 45-degree angle. So we're always envisioning the bait crawling along the bottom, the fish staring at it. And most Ned style baits that float, they stand straight up. They look really unnatural. This one's gonna look like it's facing the fish in that defensive posture. That's the type of action and position that you want to trigger those big pressured fish. So when we were designing the Ned Bug, we really kept in mind how the tail needs to be to pair perfectly with the jig head that you're gonna use. So it's got 2 little appendages on the back of the bait, right where the jig head gets inserted. That's gonna hide the head, and it pairs perfectly with our Ned head, our stealth ball head, our football head, and our matte finesse jig. Yeah, so I've got a, you know, essentially a flat here with, you know, a mix of rock, sand, a little bit of weed down there, and you know, generally I'm gonna choose a Ned when I feel that, you know, maybe the conditions aren't optimal. Maybe the fish have seen a lot of baits, they're pressured. Yeah, so I'm just gonna cast it out there where I think those fish are, and I'm just gonna let it sit there when it lands. A lot of times those fish will come right up to it, and I'm just slowly dragging this bait, there he is, along the bottom. And you know, sometimes less is more, and especially when it comes to finesse fishing and these, you know, super subtle micro finesse baits, you know, we're barely moving that, and these fish really know what's going on down there, and they'll come over, especially when conditions are calm like this, clear water. They'll come from 20, 30, you know, 40 feet away to come look at this bait. And you know, they're gonna sit there and they're gonna analyze it. So, you know, the matte finish is really key to this bait, having the right amount of buoyancy where it's sitting on a 45. You know, that's another key to getting these fish to bite. And yeah, so just slowly dragging it. And I'm talking about, you know, picture that bait on the bottom. It's you know, you don't want to give it huge aggressive movements. You want to just crawl that thing real slow, and those little tentacles are going to do a lot of work for you, and they're going to entice a lot of good bites. So yeah, definitely the Ned Bug is a really good option when you feel that there's some pressure on these fish or the conditions aren't quite optimal, and you know, they're feeding on the bottom. Maybe they're feeding on craws, they're feeding on you know, whatever they might be eating on the bottom. That bait just fell out of its mouth, but you know, that's it. And yeah, it's a lot of fun to fish a Ned. I mean, there's no doubt that a Ned puts a lot of fish in the boat. So let's get this one back.